This will be the tutorial for lesson number 11 called Nested Loops in a Maze. There are 13 puzzles here. Puzzle number 3 is a video. Let's go ahead and begin. Click on number 1. Try stepping through your code one block at a time. So there will be times when you want to use the step block instead of clicking the run block. The directions here say, this is going to be great. Help the bee collect all of the nectar. Click OK. Now we do have a 5-block limit for this puzzle, so what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm going to go ahead and solve it using only the blue blocks first. That will result in a program larger than 5 blocks. Then I'm going to go back and look for a pattern to help me use a repeat loop. So again, solving it using only the blue ones first, I'm going to make the bee take 2 steps forward, get nectar, take another step forward, get nectar again. Again, this is already more than 5. We're a total of 6, but I want to make sure that the program works. And it does. But I'm going to click try again because now I'm going to see if I can make the program shorter and somehow use a repeat loop to get my program within the 5-block limit. And the way to do that is to recognize patterns. Now, this happens to be a very short program, but it is a little bit tricky for students sometimes to figure out where the pattern repeats. And the pattern happens to repeat right here. Now, you'll notice this move forward is just there by itself, but you do have 2 smaller groups that look identical. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep one of these groups, get rid of the other one, and put this one group in here. Now, because there were 2 of these groups, we're going to replace that 5 with a 2, and then connect it here. Then I'm going to go ahead and reset this. You notice that we are, in fact, at 5 out of 5 blocks, and run the program again. Now that's important because this puzzle here is going to be used again for the next puzzle, but as one side of a square. So please remember the program that we just wrote. Click continue. And here is puzzle number 2. And just as I stated a moment ago, the same puzzle that we just solved is here at the top, but it's also vertical, same exact puzzle, and horizontal going the other direction as well. So let's go ahead and begin to solve this puzzle by building the same program that we did just a moment ago, which was a move forward, and then a repeat loop with a number 2. And inside there was 1 move forward and 1 get nectar. Now let's verify that does in fact solve that first row. And it does. Now that we know that, we need to somehow get him to write the rest of the program. Well, when he is done with this first row, we need to turn him so he's facing south, and that would be a turn to the right. And let's make sure that that goes under the loop. Try it again. Very good. Now you can see that he is facing the direction we want. Well, now I'm going to go ahead and write the exact same program for this row. So I'm going to, again, recreate it. Move forward, repeat loop. I'm going to go ahead and change this number 2 here, and I believe it'll change if I make the change while in here. And it does. You'll notice that that number is now a 2. And inside of the loop, there was a move forward and a get nectar. And when he gets to that corner, I'm going to ask him to turn to the right again. So this should be sufficient for 2 rows. Here's the first row, and here is the second row. And now he's facing the way that I want him to, so I'm just going to go ahead and recreate the entire thing for the last row. Again, 1 move forward, 1 repeat loop with a number 2. There's a move forward inside, and a get nectar. This brings us to a total of 15 out of 15 blocks. We're going to reset this puzzle and run it again. There we are. Go ahead and click continue when you're ready. And here is puzzle number 3, and it is a video concerning nested loops. Let's go ahead and watch this.
Now we're going to use nested loops with the bee. We're given some starter code which tells the bee to move forward and get nectar 3 times and then turn right. Let's take that whole piece of code and nest it inside another repeat block and set it to repeat 3 times. Done.
Please don't forget to click continue at the bottom so that this bubble turns green. So this is puzzle number 4, and you'll notice a couple different things. First and foremost, it is a multiple choice puzzle. There's already a program here that they're going to ask you to consider. And please look at the puzzle itself. It looks exactly like the one that you just solved for puzzle number 2. The question is, look closely at the nested loops below. What will happen when you click run? Take a look at this program because it definitely looks different than what we just did a moment ago. This is referred to as a nested loop because there is a loop in here that is nested within a larger loop. That is why it's called a nested loop. So take a guess. What do you think will happen if we click run? Your choices are A, the bee will move forward and get nectar only one time. B, the bee will get only 2 units of nectar. C, the bee will get all of the nectar. Or D, the bee will turn the wrong direction. Please pick one of these choices, and as soon as you do, this block will turn orange. Go ahead and run the program, and the computer will tell you if you chose correctly or not. If you choose correctly, congratulations. If you do not choose correctly, please don't worry too much about it. Just go ahead and move on to the next puzzle. I'm going to leave it blank. You make sure that you choose something and run the program. Go ahead and click and move on to number 5. Very interesting. We do have a brand new set of patterns here. But what I'm going to ask you to do as a student is I'm going to ask you to consider the smallest version of this. And the smallest version, of course, is just the square that the bee is on. You'll notice that he's already standing on a flower with the number 1 on it. So you have a choice. In fact, you have 2 different choices here. You can make him either take a step forward, or you can ask him to get nectar right then and there. Whichever you choose will still work. For myself, I'm going to ask him to move forward. So I'm going to ask him to ignore the flower that he's standing on. I'm going to ask him to take a step forward. Now, if he takes a step forward, he will be standing on this other flower, and at that point, I will ask him to get a nectar. This is what it looks like. That's it. You'll notice that this one he completely ignored, but this one here turned from a 1 to a 0. Now, again, I'm starting with the smallest version of the puzzle, and I'm going to work my way bigger and more complex. Now, these 2 blocks had him take a step forward and get a nectar. The next question you should ask yourself is, well, how many times would he have to do this in order to solve the entire first row? The answer should be 3. So what we're going to do, we're going to take these 2 blocks and we're going to put them inside of a repeat loop with the number 3. Now, oftentimes students will say 4 because, of course, it looks like there are 4 flowers up here. But if we replace it with the number 4, let me show you what happens when you click run. He is in fact going to try to take 4 steps, which means that right here, he ends up crashing into that wall. And that is why it should be just 3, like this. Now this brings him to the corner of this square, at which point he should turn to the right. So please put a turn right here at the very end. Great. Now here I want you to notice 2 different things. First of all, this row will be exactly the same, and then this row will be exactly the same, and this row will be exactly the same. So you basically want the bee to perform all of these things repeatedly. I also want you to notice that there is a 6 block limit to this puzzle, and we're already at 5. And he has only completed the first row. Now, obviously, since this is a lesson on nested loops, that means that they're going to ask you to get another loop, and they're going to ask you to put this entire program, which is for 1 row, and go ahead and put it inside or nest it inside of the other loop. The other loop, of course, gets bigger enough to encompass the first loop. Now, the number that goes in this outside loop should reflect the number of sides that the bee has to complete. In this case, the bee has to complete 4 rows. So that instead of a 5, it should be 4. This brings us to a 6 out of 6 block limit. Reset the puzzle, run it again. There's the second row, there's the third row, and here is the fourth row. And of course, here he takes that last flower that he was standing on when the puzzle first began. When you are ready, click continue. Here is puzzle number 6. And here we have some Plants vs. Zombies puzzles. So if you are familiar with this game, these characters should be familiar to you. The directions say, zombie, hungry. Get the zombie to the sunflower using the fewest number of blocks possible. You have a 5 block limit, and you do have several different rows that the zombie must walk. There is a flesh-eating plant here, so please make sure that you don't go in that direction. Now, when we first solved the bee puzzle a moment ago, I did say that to worry about the smallest version of the puzzle first and work your way to a more complex one. So, where the zombie is standing right now, he obviously needs to take a step forward. And that's where we're going to start. Make him take a step forward. However, he will have to take multiple steps forward. So, how many steps until he gets to this corner? Well, 0, 1, 2, 3. So, we will put that move forward in a repeat loop with the number 3. That should be enough for the first row. And now that he's at that corner, we're going to make him take a left, and that's outside the loop. Okay, now here I want you to notice a couple things. This next row is also 3 steps, and the last row is also 3 steps. So you're essentially going to ask him to repeat everything that we have written so far. And the second thing I want you to notice is that there was a 5 block limit. We're already at 4, which means you can only get 1 more. And since this is a lesson concerning nested loops, that means you are going to put the entire program that you've already written nested inside of a bigger loop. And the number that goes in the outer loop reflects the number of sides that the zombie has to walk. Well, he has to walk 1, 2, 3 different rows. So please make sure that there's a 3 in that spot. This brings us to 5 out of 5 blocks. So let's go ahead and reset the puzzle and run it. There's the first one, second one, and third rows. Very good. Click continue when you're ready. This next puzzle is number 7, and it will be the last one for this tutorial. And we're going to do the same thing that we just did a moment ago. We begin with the smallest version of the puzzle and then build to a higher complexity. We still have a 5 block limit here. So where the zombie is standing right now, he's facing the direction that we want. So obviously the first thing we're going to have him do is take a step forward. However, there is a limit. There is a point past which I don't want him to go. When he gets to this spot right here, if he continues to go forward, he's just getting closer to these flesh-eating plants. So instead of continuing forward here, I'm going to turn him so that he goes this way. The number of steps that he takes from here to here is 3. So let's put the move forward in a loop with the number 3. And then when he gets to this corner, I'm going to make him turn to the right. Remember, it isn't my right, it's his right because he's the one that's walking. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and then he turns to the right. And now he's facing the direction I want. Well, of course, I noticed that he will also take 3 steps this way and turn to the right. And then he will finally take another 3 steps this way. So we simply want him to repeat all of these things again. We are at 4 out of 5 blocks. And of course, that means we're going to use a nested loop system. So go ahead and get another loop. Put the entire program inside, and remember the number that goes in the outer loop is the number of sides that the zombie has to walk. In this case, the zombie has to walk 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows. So the number in this loop should be a 3. All right, go ahead and reset the puzzle, run it again. And here you are, first row, second row, and third row. Okay, we are going to stop this tutorial here. Please make sure that you did, in fact, make a choice for puzzle number 4. and ran the program to tell, and the computer would tell you if you chose correctly or not. Your job is to make sure that everything is green from 1 to number 7. Thank you. You are now welcome to close code.